Snark Chocolate, a show about ZK products where we break them down with rich flavors and sweet insights. My name is Omer, and I'll be co-hosting this episode together with Queenie. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Lisa Akselrod, part of DevRel team and technical writer at Aztec. We are looking forward to hearing about what it's like to be at the forefront of privacy tech. Lisa, it's great to have you here.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here.
Cool. So to kick things off, could you please introduce yourself and how you came to work on Aztec?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lisa. I'm part of DevRel team in Aztec. And while working in blockchain, at some point I was thinking that okay, if I need to choose one coolest project, what it will be? And it should be Aztec. It should be Aztec, obviously, for me. Two reasons. The first one, in my personal opinion, it has the most beautiful cryptography inside. And for me, it's I love beautiful formulas. For me, it's something that matters. And also, I've met Aztec founders who, by that moment, have already been building privacy on Ethereum for more than 6 years, and they were so committed to something, to delivering privacy to Aztec, that I was very impressed by it, and I was, wow, I want to join it. I should find a way to join it.
So this is actually the first time we have DevRel on the show. Probably one of the most important roles in any product and ecosystem environment. So we are curious, how does your day-to-day looks like? What are your goals and priorities?
Wow, I think in general, my goal is to make sure that whoever wants to build on Aztec is able to do it, including from very advanced developers who want to build something very sophisticated where they need to know a lot of nuances, to the very beginners who maybe even not beginners to blockchain, but beginners to coding at all, so that they can grasp some basics and being able to start as well, and everything in between. I'm mostly focused on writing things, on writing both documentation and writing more wide audience articles, something that will explain people what is special about Aztec, what is the reason for them to build on it, and maybe what are the use cases where they do not need to build on it, where it won't fit, to ensure that we will meet our most relevant builders and that the most relevant builders will meet us and will feel good when they come to the ecosystem, come to build, meet the team, meet everything, meet Aztec.
I'm curious, how does the current developer acquisition look like in Aztec community, and what are the common questions developers have about Aztec?
That's a good one. I think as for many questions for Aztec, there is no unique answer for this one. There are developers who are with Aztec just for years, almost from the very beginning of Aztec, from Aztec Connect, and they just follow what was happening. They were building on previous versions, they're building on new versions. There are developers who genuinely interested in something about privacy, and they explore different privacy products, privacy technology, and at some point they discover Aztec as well, because it has quite a central role in it when it comes to blockchain privacy. There are people who first discover Noir, Aztec's ZK general language, and then they start building with Noir. Then they see that there are some use cases where just Noir is not enough, and then can also utilize Aztec. There are people who start building on other L2s, and then something come up to their mind that they want to build. They can't build on transparent blockchain. They also start thinking about privacy, start trying with Aztec. And also, I think that there are some people who just like vibes, and they first start vibing around ecosystem, and then they already think, okay, now I also want to build something. What I can build? Sometimes these people are not even developers, but I will just start being a bit of developer to join it because I like how it feels.
So glad to hear that there have been some people with Aztec for years. Yeah, and you also mentioned the previous version of it's named Aztec Connect. Actually, would love to hear more stories about Aztec journey. For example, this pivot in 2023. So could you share more about its journey, and were there any key lessons learned from the experience?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer this question because I wasn't there at that moment. But from
Oh.
what I know, from the very beginning, the idea was privacy. Somehow privacy on Ethereum. The first version was adding privacy to existing DeFi application or even like any applications on Aztec. This is compared to current landscape of Ethereum, where most things happen on L2, it doesn't quite match the reality. So the next version was already an L2 on Ethereum with privacy. But then the question is like, how flexible this privacy is. So the third version we are having now, it's kind of as flexible privacy as it can be on chain, so that pretty much whatever comes to developers' mind to build on chain can be built with privacy.
So the flexibility you mean here is more on the developer side.
Flexibility, I would say how explicit is the variety of applications. Because one of the key things about Aztec is that it has blended state. It has both public state and private state. Public state is like any other, like Ethereum, like any other L2 universal state, reflecting the current state of the blockchain everyone has access to. Private state, every user has its own private state that reflects what has happened privately client side with this user. Very often when one wants to build something with privacy, it doesn't mean monolithically private. Where by monolithically private, I mean you have some function, you put inputs on one side, then as a black box, something happens, everything is private, and you get some outputs, like some proof, for example. It could work with some applications. For example, if you want to provide some private centralized swap, if you have one entity, you want it to do private swaps, then it would work. But if you want, for example, have a Uniswap style AMM DEX with private identity, in this case, by design, AM DEX assumes that you have liquidity pools, the price of the assets is adjusted based on liquidity pools, and you need to update the state of liquidity pools all the time. So you will need to have a construction where you can make some functions and some variables private, some public. And this is exactly what Aztec allows you to do, and this is what I call flexibility. When the developer is writing the smart contract on Aztec, they can say, okay, these functions and these variables are private, these functions and these variables are public.
I wanted to ask about the developer tools available today and maybe also in the future. There is a uniqueness that building Aztec for as a privacy first Ezekiel rollup. I'm wondering if it also means that there are like specialized tools if you want to interact with or build to this ecosystem.
Yeah, you write programs with Noir in code editor like VS Code, and then you have Sandbox for running your client-side execution locally. And then that is usually run in a Docker. And then you have currently a private DevNet and later public DevNet and later public testnet, where you will test and see how it goes with public side. And then you also have other tools for testing, like you have Remix and like other tools that developers got used to.
So, you know what, one step back, there's a, I'm just trying to kind of like have a good model of the tech stack that is expected to be available for Aztec. Maybe you can share more about in general the tech stack. Like we already mentioned there's like a client side thing here that do not exist in other places, but there's also some server side aspect. So can you break it down like further?
Yeah, sure. Let me take it a bit on a higher level. You have Noir. Noir is a zero-knowledge universal language to write zero-knowledge applications. On its own, Noir is not tied to Aztec, or even is not tied to blockchain in general. You can just write zero-knowledge applications. But in this case, they will be, what I've already mentioned, monolithically private. So you can do privacy there if you want privacy. But it will be monolithical. So then you have Aztec that gives you blended state, private and public state. How the developer interfaces this public and private state through writing smart contract in Noir, where the developer can decide what is public, what is private. And then when we execute this smart contract, we need also to execute both private and public parts and update both private and public state. So how it happens? First, again, the smart contract consists of private and public functions. First, all private functions are executed client-side. Client-side, it means on user's device, on customer hardware like smartphone or laptop browser. Then the proof of correct execution is generated, and some side effects are emitted. And side effects, in this case, it's queued public functions to be executed from this smart contract, as well as some nodes and nullifiers that were emitted during client-side execution. And this represents the transaction in case of Aztec, something that is put to the mempool and will be processed by the sequencer. Zero-knowledge client-side proof with side effects. And here it's very important that the proof is zero-knowledge, like has this zero-knowledge property, because what allows us to have privacy. Because in this case, when the sequencer verifies the proof, it only knows that something was executed client-side, and whatever it was executed correctly, but not more than that. And then the sequencer executes public part of the transaction pretty much like any other public execution, like on Ethereum or Rollup.
So more broadly speaking, what are going to be the effects of this private state, or what features will be enabled on top? Meaning, for example, compliance. Is there going to be some kind of a way to give someone a key to view into your private state, or is there going to be any notion of interoperability with other chains or with other L2s with this private state? Because this seems to be kind of like an issue here.
I think it can be split into several different things. Speaking of compliance, it's currently, and not currently in general, it works through absolute keys, meaning that we have what we call private execution environment to manage all client-side execution for every user. In this private execution environment, the user has master keys. And then for interacting with each application, the separate key is derived for each application. We call it app siloed keys. Then when it comes to cross-chain, we have the concept called portals. And the thing is that we don't have canonical bridge for Aztec. We have this portal that each application can use and can define how they want to process cross-chain communication, if they need it at all. Meaning that each application defines on their own the entry points to cross-chain communication. And it allows the compliance configurability from like total anarchy. If someone says we have no rules, our application has no rules of who and how and under condition can use it. Everyone can. Or it can be configurable up to, okay, the assets can be bridged into and bridged out only if the particular conditions are met. So it allows application developers to follow pretty much any compliance logic they can come up with and they might want, but it's fully on developer layer, not on the network layer.
Okay, so one takeaway I have so far is that if I'm a developer, my best move at the moment, if I want to get involved with Aztec, would be to start learning Noir and get kind of like hands-on experience writing some applications with Noir. It might be useful in other places, but it's going to be a very good entry point to the ecosystem. I wanted to also ask about other actors in the in Aztec. So if I'm a prover network, right, obviously there's going to be some heavy computations involved. You had some test nets already, right? You're experimenting with different developer test nets. So what are the other actors that are expected to be to exist in on Aztec, and what can I do to get more involved operating those?
Yeah, I think we have three main categories of Aztec actors. One, those running the network. Those are nodes running sequencers and provers that you have mentioned. For node sequencers, we aim at being as wide and as accessible as possible so that they can be run all over the world, on all continents, individuals, entities, whoever. For provers, if I understand correctly, currently those are mostly like professional prover operators, more like marketplaces or prover networks or actors like that. Because as you mentioned, they're quite computationally heavy. This is the first category. The second category that you've mentioned, developers, and the third category, privacy users, that are also very, very important, not only for like to use when the application is ready, but kind of to go the way together with the ecosystem and developers to give developers feedback, to criticize, to challenge, and so on and so forth, and maybe even inject ideas of what privacy applications the world lacks.
So, Lisa, I noticed that Aztec is pioneering by fully decentralizing the stack at launch. Actually, it's an ambitious path that actually many avoid. So, could you share the thought process behind this decision? And is decentralization always the top priority for Aztec?
I think, if I remember correct, it was one of the issues with the previous version of Aztec, that it's very complicated to decentralize sequencer on the go. Because if the network already secures a lot of assets and you're pretty much responsible for people's assets that they put in it, and making such an upgrade, switching the network from centralized to decentralized, that seems to be almost the kill yourself upgrade. It's like it's very risky. And that's why this time Aztec is doing it from the very beginning, decentralized from day one, because first of all, it's a privacy network. So it means it's a bit more attention towards it from regulation, from many official actors. But then we are also building Aztec to last for years, maybe for like dozens of years. And we do not know what will happen to the world in the future. That's why we want to make it as robust as possible. We want it to be run by hundreds and then thousands of nodes all over the world, that whatever is happening, the network continues running. And Aztec on its own, like entity and like people, do not run any nodes. It's all run by the world. And then even if something happens, like with jurisdiction, or even with, like, I don't know, a natural disaster in a particular part of the world, the network continues running. And honestly, I think this is the real definition, and the only real definition of like being robust and permissionless. Because if you have one single point of failure, like centralized sequencer, maybe yes, today, exactly today, nothing will happen. But in even midterm perspective, it seems to be quite fragile.
Got it. So, were there any key challenges in this decentralization roadmap?
I think it's in general a very, very challenging puzzle to design a decentralized network, especially when you need to be the first to do it and you do not have too much to learn from. I think currently the main challenge that like is still present is that like how it works. We have number of sequencers running. Then for each block, we have one sequencer proposing the block, and we have other sequencers attesting the block. But this is P2P network, meaning that it imposes its communication complexity. Meaning that when we have a transaction, when you have a block, when you have a transaction should be included in the block, and then the block should be proposed by the sequencer and attested by other sequencers. And it puts some limits on how fast transactions can be, saying that if someone wants to build something that requires very fast transactions, it's probably not the best place to do it.
Okay, so I want to talk about Noir. We already mentioned it a few times now, so maybe it's a good opportunity to give a proper introduction to what it is, when it came from, where it came from, sorry, and what's the current roadmap of this environment.
Yeah, Noir is zero knowledge universal language. It's a high level language with Rust based syntax, meaning that you write high level program, but when it is executed, the zero knowledge proof of its correct execution is automatically generated. So people write high level programs that operate like circuits, that requires way less knowledge of mathematics and pretty much no knowledge of cryptography and writing circuits to write ZK programs now.
What are some examples of applications that people wrote with Noir already?
I think things like ZK Passport and ZK Email, it's still a bit of an like infrastructure level, but that's very explicit application. And then some like we had Anoncast, an application where people can anonymously post a gossip or like a message without revealing it. Proof of location, someone has built on the hackathon recently. Proof of application like Glassdoor, where people can post their salary without disclosing their identity. So I think to generalize it, whenever it comes to private identity, people see a lot of value in building applications with Noir, or whenever they need just zero knowledge verifiability, like in case of ZK passport, ZK mail. It also seems to make sense.
Yeah, identity seems like a natural evolution from we already had privacy for payments, let's say, with stuff like Zcash. So identity is indeed a way to provide broader sets of proofs on private data that seems to also need to be kind of like attached to you as a user. This is also kind of like what you see in the broader Aztec community. Like, what are the directions that you guys are exploring for applications built on top and smart contracts?
Yeah, I think two most obvious choices will be private DeFi and private identity. But then another thing that is maybe not so obvious from the very beginning is that if you want to do some expensive computations and you can by design make them client side, you can do it on Aztec almost for free. If it's like alternative signature verification, or if it's multi-party computation for many, many parties, because when something is executed client side, for the sequencer to verify the proof, it doesn't matter how complex the computation was client side. The verification will be the same. So it also opens the design space of options that are not available on other blockchains, where the sequencer has to execute each opcode and should be paid for each opcode. But mostly, I think, yeah, it's DeFi and it's identity. But then people are, I would say, quite creative in coming up with everything else. Yeah, but I think that in the beginning, these are like things around DeFi and identity.
There's Aztec it's a work in progress for many years. And one thing that is moving very fast is ZK Tech, which is the underlying tech for Aztec. So is there any risk management here, or how do you handle the fact that like ZK, and you're also like, the one of the biggest innovators in ZK. How do you kind of like make it work, right? So building a product that should kind of like last long term and like for many years, and also all of this advancement that happened on the technology front.
I think for Aztec, the strategy was that okay, what cryptography we needed? We have two harsh limits. First one, for client-side proving, we have a hard limit on RAM. If we want it to be executed, if we want the proofs to be generated client-side on user's device. The second is proof size, because if the proof should be sent from client-side to sequencer, it should be small enough not to create excessive latency. So the objective of designing Aztec proven system was to make something that will take very small amount of RAM and the proofs will be small enough. And this is currently ultra honk, where honk stands for highly optimized Plonk. So this is Plonkish arithmetization with the sum check protocol and polynomial multilinear polynomial commitment scheme. And then to make it possible for client-side proof generation, it also utilizes folding and Goblin Plonk. This is something on top of folding. And I think that the objective was to make this thing work. We want the network to run. We need a proven system that will meet particular requirements. So we do something that works. At the same time, a lot of innovation happening around Plonkish arithmetization, around hash-based snarks, and many other snarks. We are currently, for Aztec, working with this ultra honk. At the same time, Noir, as a ZK language, it's backend agnostic. We provide the ultra honk backend for it. But then whoever in the world, for some reason, needs another backend and is keen on developing it, they can do it and use Noir with another backend. For example, Pluto team has developed some folding-based backend for Noir because they, I guess, needed to use it. So Noir backends, I think, will follow all the innovations being plugged there by other teams. On Aztec side, we stick to our ultra honk thing with IVC on top of it. And then maybe one day it will change and it will evolve into something else. But for now, it should be stable, it should be secure. So we stop on this thing.
Interesting. So there's two things I take from what you just said. First is modularity, right? Which might be a bit unnoticed, but definitely is clearly seen on the way Noir is designed, for example. Second is that necessity leads to innovation. Basically, since you guys have been working on a very clear mission for many years, it defines some unique specs, and you need to innovate to meet the specs. And that's kind of like the goal, and that's what drives the innovation that you guys are doing, and also probably what you are picking up from like the research effort all around. That's is there anything you want to add on that, or is this a good summary?
No, I think you grasped it.
Okay. Now, so what's next on the roadmap? I mean, when's going to be what's the schedule for testnet? I mean, it is very clearly stated on Aztec website. You recently announced foundation. Things are moving for sure, but maybe you can put some timeline and some meaning into some future upcoming milestones.
Yeah, I think the main thing right now is transitioning from DevNet to public testnet. This is happening somewhere very, very soon, but without particular date to be announced. Yeah, and then because we have this decentralized sequencer network, it works for us a bit differently from most blockchains. It's not deprecating and deploying again when we go from testnet to testnet. We pretty much go with the same testnet to new steps, adding new features to be tested and battle tested. But these are the sequencers responsible for upgrading the network. And it's pretty much the sequencer's decision to ensure that the network is ready to be upgraded for the next step.
I have a follow-up question on applications. So apparently there are also some developers, they're building privacy products on other layer 2s or Ethereum layer 1, something like privacy pools, steals address, or just some similar products like Tornado Cash. So do you think they are potential competitors, or there's actually a way to potentially collaborate?
That's a good one. I'm as a person with like a very, I would say, quite technical mindset. I believe that for every product, you have a platform that fits the most.
Yes.
and everyone will win if we can communicate to developers which for which applications, for which architectures, and which features Aztec fits the most.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, so Lisa, this was very interesting. We do have one final question before we part ways. It's a question we ask all of our guests to name one effort, project, company you are bullish about.
Penumbra. I guess it's something like shielded decks, but pretty much this is the first privacy project running on mainnet and running successfully. So whatever contributes to privacy on Ethereum, I'm very bullish on it.
Okay, I think that that's it for today. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure hosting you and learning from you. We'll obviously keep watching Aztec and how it evolves into a mature public chain. And good luck with that. Privacy is definitely one of the best things that are coming out of the blockchain space. We'll keep in touch, and yeah, I mean, for those listening, we are sharing some links in the show notes if you want to follow up on Aztec and Lisa. And that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.